The other part of this that, of course, from our side of things took everybody by storm was Mel Kiper. And he I will say he made headlines. He was viral all weekend for his very over the top determination and defense of Shedeur. I will say it's a little funny. He did have Shedeur over Cam Ward, which was a bold thing to do, and at least allowed him to stake his claim to being the most pro Shedeur of anybody on TV. But he was also fifth overall, which I just kind of found funny. He's like, I'm going to go crazy on TV for 4 days about a guy that wasn't actually even the best in the class total, but he just was the best quarterback. Sam, you wrote about this for the site, though. Was Kiper's performance, his act, his whatever, good or bad for him in ESPN? What do you think?
I mean, can it be both? I penned a column about how I thought vintage Kiper on Friday night was great. I thought Kiper was excellent on Friday night. You got kind of some of the theatrics, but also the analysis of how he was disgusted with the NFL. And I mean, regardless of what you feel about Shedeur, he probably should have been drafted in the second or third round. I think we can probably come to that conclusion. But he sandwiched that in between Thursday and Saturday. And Thursday was the Shedeur Sanders show, even though I mean, not how many teams had a first round grade on him? I don't know if we know that answer, but not many apparently. And then Saturday just kind of became like an airing of grievances for him, where he was, Reese Davis was ready to lock horns with him on set and really finally put him in his place. And then Mel said he was kind of unfazed by the criticism. I think this is just who Mel is, but I think it was just so put on like almost steroids just because of the fall of Shedeur. Like if he gets drafted in the second or third round, we don't have that Saturday, and maybe the fireworks that made everybody talk about Shedeur, made everybody talk about Mel, don't happen if Shedeur gets taken in day two. I thought personally, if you're talking about, okay, we want eyeballs on this, the ratings are good, we need a story here because, Cam, for one reason or another, they didn't really want to cover Cam Ward as the number one overall pick. It's good from that standpoint. I think from the standpoint of when you have the average fan doesn't want to hear about Shedeur Sanders. They don't want to hear about what Mel Kiper's evaluation is and how it misses the mark. And I think Nick Wright made a good point. It was basically like his evaluation is so off base from what the rest of the league thinks. Like, how can you think that makes good TV? I think some of it was good TV. I think some of it was not good TV. And I think we kind of saw the reaction. People are like, how is ESPN going to put Mel Kiper? Well, they're going to back on TV. They're going to put him back on TV. He'll be back next year for the draft. This guy lives, sleeps, breathes football. But I think it was just double parts, like equally good and equally bad, just because it just kind of became a caricature of itself by the time we got to day three.
Agreed. And I think that the problem became is he wasn't confronting reality, right? Like that's where Reese Davis got just fed up and Louis Riddick just had to shut him down. I mean, at that point, Shedeur had just been drafted and it was the end of the saga, but they were basically trying to just plead with him. Like I think one of the two of them said the draft has spoken. Like that's what happened. Like,
that was Louis Riddick, I think.
Yeah, and it felt as if Kiper was back on Thursday all weekend, still trying to almost like give his take on Shedeur sliding from 9 to 31 or something, and in this case it was like, well, the conversation now is why did the slide happen and what happens next, not why everybody that works in every NFL front office is actually just a huge fucking moron, which is kind of what Kiper was making the case for. So it's not good TV when you piss off your coworkers, I don't think, and you have that kind of a moment go viral. But Ben, it makes me think of my hot mic from last week where I did praise Mel for, I think, understand, like he was the perfect guy to have on this story because I think that he's the only one that had the stamina to see it through to the very long conclusion that it ended up taking. And it was the biggest story of this draft, whether that's exhausting for all of us to have to watch over and over or not. It was the biggest story, and he uniquely ended up becoming the perfect kind of voice for it. What would they have even talked about with regard to the Shedeur slide if he wasn't on TV? That was what I was wondering.
And I think at this point in Mel's career, he's almost more of like a mascot than he is an analyst. Like maybe mascot's not right, more of a personality than he is an analyst. Because ESPN employs 5 people who cover the NFL draft on a full-time basis, 4 people who cover the draft on a full-time basis. And I think,
and then like 10 more who are there anyway.
Yeah. Like, I think when it comes to mock drafts, and like, Sam, you follow this stuff, pretty closely. When it comes to the ESPN guys who come out with mock drafts on a regular basis, I think that Mel's like trails behind like Field Yates and Jordan Reed's and Peter Schrager's annual one, which is, sourced with teams of where these guys are going to go. Like, I don't think people turn to Mel for who is going to be the best quarterback in this draft, who's a steal at running back. Like, they turn to Mel for the bravado and for the personality and for the opinions. And this was the perfect story to give you this. Now, it felt like he was crashing out throughout the weekend. Like, it was very, at one point on Thursday, which was only 1/3 of the way through this whole thing, like, him and Louis Riddick were basically sulking on stage about Shedeur having not been picked yet. And we were only at like pick 21 at that point. And I also thought like his barb about like the NFL has sucked at evaluating quarterbacks for 20 years. It's like, okay, but like, what about when they hit on Joe Burrow? What about when they hit on Peyton Manning? Like the guys who typically go high in the draft hit at a pretty high clip, I would think.
Well, and it's a hard thing to say when we understand the whole idea of evaluating quarterbacks is kind of a fool's errand, but that also applies to Mel Kiper.
Right.
It's like they kept flashing the graphic of the people that he had been higher on and where they went and all that throughout the weekend. Like, that could be our Kyle Hamilton of the week, Ben, is just put that graphic on the screen because we all saw it 150 times. But there's
Mel's best available.
Yeah, but it's like we're seeing on that list like Jimmy Clausen and Blaine Gabbert and some of these names. It's like, well, you've also sucked at evaluating quarterbacks for 40 years, dude. You don't get to throw that at people if you're included in the list of those who it's hard for.
Yeah, and this slide in particular is pretty unprecedented. Like, I can't imagine there are many Saturdays we've had where Mel Kiper's number 5 overall player is still sitting atop Mel's big board. But like, I mean, I think the closest is like Malik Willis when he fell a couple of years ago to the 3rd round, or Sam Howell when he fell to the 5th round, or Matt Corral. And the league is always right. Like, the league is always right when these guys fall. There's never one of these guys who falls. And it's like, obviously there's Aaron Rodgers in like to pick 24. Tom Brady wasn't anywhere in this conversation, but like,
exactly. Brady wasn't one where on draft night, everybody was wondering what was going on. I mean, maybe he could have gone a round or 2 earlier, but everybody likes to say the Patriots passed on him a half dozen times too. Yeah. So that's not even a good example. That was just a fluke.
Yeah. So maybe this works out for the Browns or somebody else. And maybe like this gets to be like the final feather in Mel's cap, and that like he always gets to lay claim to this. But I think history would say that's probably not going to happen. But to your original question, like, I do think this was almost the perfect story for him to showcase his personality, which I think is largely what his role is now when it comes to the NFL draft.